Before we start the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button so that you can receive everything new from us that you haven't heard. A summary of the last season of this series. Go and listen to it on the channel, or you will find its link in the first comment and also in the description below this video. The last thing is us, we saw it in the last part, which is that Pablo killed 2 of his men in his private prison. And these 2 are Kiko Fernando and his man Pablo, who was originally running his business while he was in. And because of this incident, Colombian President Cesar decided to attack Pablo and imprison him in prison, true. But Pablo surprised everyone and escaped from his prison by making a tunnel to escape from underground. And far from Pablo, we also saw that Pacho, to remain the head of a gang, was also able to obtain information about Murphy and that he was working illegally. So based on him, Pacho asked Murphy that he thinks and works with him or he will be imprisoned. And of course, Murphy would have gone crazy and known who sold him the Pacho, to the point that he suspected a guard. But a guard knew him that he's not at fault for anything. But a guard might be lying if we saw a guard sitting with my daughter Pacho helped. And we still don't know what their relationship is with each other. The season is starting very well. What's new with the endpoint of the first season, and we are currently at Pablo prison, which is literally surrounded by soldiers from every direction for the sake of they are looking for Pablo. And in the forest near the prison, we are currently seeing a group of soldiers talking about Pablo. And one of them says that Pablo is a legendary person to the point that he was killed before, burned, and came back to life again. Of course, my friend, this is a very fictional story, but this shows that the soldiers were very afraid of Pablo during this period. And the biggest evidence of this is that currently Pablo and his men are sitting in front of these soldiers. One of them knows Pablo that they have to arrest him. But Pablo tells him very coldly that he will not be able to allow him to do so, and takes his men walk without any of the soldiers doing anything to him. Away from all this laughter, we see that Pablo does not run away and take some of it. He goes to the house where his mother, his wife Tata, and his children live, and he keeps reassuring them about himself. The next day, my friend, Pablo sits with him. His men or the rest of them mean that Pablo really lost many of his men in the attack on the last prison. The important thing is that Pablo knew his men. They must return to Maid Lane, their home city, and impose their control over the gangs there as before so that everyone knows that Pablo he returned and was not hiding from the police. And Pablo asked one of his men named Ella Kika to act in a car like this, and a driver would be with Babylon all the time so that he can roam the city of Medellin comfortably without anyone doubting him. He agrees with Kik's words and decides to carry them out, but you know, my friend Pablo at that moment did not know that many gangs had actually turned against him and would not return under his control like before. And the most important gangs. This is Mrs. Judy's gang, but just one moment. Who is this Judy? I would like you to know that this Judy is Kiko's woman, the person who killed Pablo in prison last season when they thought they were cheating. And we are currently seeing Judy sitting with her brother Jaime and also her assistant Berna. And you know they must find Pablo and kill him. And you must also let them know that they must know all the nerves that anyone who takes Pablo's side will also be killed with him. This guy is thinking a little, Berna, and he knows that Judy agrees with what she says and that they should fire Pablo. But the most important thing now is that they should stop working in their drug factories until they can reach Pablo. Or the police will reach Pablo. If Pablo is at large, the police will be there everywhere in the city. They won't be able to do anything or make drugs in their labs. Judy agrees with Berna, but Jaime. He gets upset with him, and Jaime thinks that they should continue making drugs normally. And keep going, my friend. He thinks that Jaime needs to move forward. Now we leave Judy and all these people and go to the Briscoe brothers gang, and we know that this is the most important gang in the city of Medellin after the gang Pablo all the time. And also Judy, and we know that the leader of this gang is one of the Briscoe brothers. And he is the older brother named Ricardo, who in the past, he was a doctor by the way. But he took the path of crime and continued to use his medical knowledge to torture his victims. The important thing is that Ricardo comes, he has a call from Pablo. So Pablo's God, is he still on his side? So Ricardo confirmed his words. On the other hand, we see that Lecca is currently going. A taxi driver named Lemon asks Lemon to be Pablo's driver. So Lemon agrees very much. And my friend, I need to get to know you. The first on Lyman is a taxi driver who works with brothels to save the night girls in these houses safely. Away from police eyes, this is Yas in other words. But it is not our problem. All of this is general. The important thing is that currently, Lemon was standing in front of one of these brothels, and Kika now know that Lemon wants to bring a girl like this who is always riding in the taxi. As long as Lemon has transported Pablo from Place to place, Pablo will originally hide from the police in his taxi bag for Kika, and the girl who will be riding with Kika in the taxi will be like a camouflage, so that anyone who sees it will remember it, just as it transports girls. Nothing more than that, and Pablo is not transferring, and currently Lemon is deciding to bring a girl like this to do this task. So he takes some of it and goes to a girl. Her name is Maritza, and she is offered to work together on this matter, and she will get a lot of money. Of course, Maritza agrees because she needs money, and my friend Maritza is not a night girl at all like the one Lemon works with, but rather she has been his neighbor and friend for a long time. Nothing more than that, so he said. He offers, she has to do this work. The important thing is that Lemon, Kika, and Maris are now moving from in front of the brothel so that they can go to Pablo, and there is a girl in, by the way. You see the brothel, so she is upset because she loves cake and thinks that he is cheating on her with Maritza. Remember this girl very well in general. Lemon, Kika, and Maris are currently going to Pablo's, and Maritza's eyes are completely blind, meaning she doesn't know how to work. Who is it with? The important thing is that Lemon meets Pablo, and they get to know each other, after which Pablo rides Lemon in his taxi bag and starts Lemon. He kept going around a place where Pablo would stop, enter this place, and kiss one of his men who would give Pablo the money. This person, Pablo, knew that money was scarce these days because of Judy's gang, which prevented many gangs from working with them, and he was careful. Pablo, from all this, knows that this person will deal with Judy as soon as possible, and Pablo takes some money from him and leaves while Pablo is here. People walk in the street and know him, so they get close to him and greet him, and his sitting still brings out a lot of money and makes everyone happy so that he can earn. They wanted to. As usual, and in the middle of all this crowd, they kept seeing Maritza Pablo and reacting that this was the person helping to move him, but she did not mean that she does anything. After a while of all this, we see Haim, Judy's brother, working in the drug lab from their labs. He is currently calling us and knows that he opened it. The drug lab is working there, and not only that, but Hemi also knows that Berna knows Record, the Briscoe Brotherhood gang member, is in the factory because he will bring his men to help protect him. At that time, Berna gets angry, and Haim knows that he is stupid because he got angry at Ricard. And Berna did not finish his words, and Hemi began to hear the shooting in the stadium. And suddenly he actually entered Hemi's Record and his men, and with them is Pablo. And they kill all his men, Hemi. After that, Pablo himself kills Hemi and talks to Berna, and they know that he will reach him again. He is Judy, and he will finish them off soon. So he is in our country with him, and he is fanatical and knows Judy that her brother died. And now my presence agrees that they will take revenge on Pablo if anything happens. But as for Pablo, after that his day did not end. He returned completely normally to his home. On the other hand, with Caesar, president of Colombia, as soon as he learned that Pablo had escaped from prison, he went crazy and held a meeting between Tarek and all his men and ordered them to look for Pablo everywhere. To some extent, they find him, and Caesar appoints for this mission an army colonel named Benzin, who is responsible for Pablo's capture. After that, we see Murphy at his house. And sometimes Connie is fighting with him now and wants him to return to America because he is not safe here. The biggest proof of this is that Pacho kidnapped him, as we saw last season, but Murphy prefers to calm her down. After that, a guard called Mir. He knew that Pablo had escaped. Murphy was completely crazy. He and a guard went to Pablo's prison right now so they could inspect the prison, but they had officers. There were many soldiers in front of the prison. And now one of the soldiers came to them and told them that Colonel Benzon, who was handling the case, refused to let them in until he finished. His men are a complete examination of the prison. So Murphy and a guard agree and continue waiting for Benz and his men to finish their work, after which they will enter the prison and develop. There is hope that they will find anything that will help them reach Pablo, but they do not find anything. But they do not feel harsh and go to Benzo in the operations center. He is his, and they ask him to join his mission to arrest Pablo. So he calls Benzo and listens to them sit here in the operations center and work with his men and all this work. A call came from Murphy and a guard from the girl in D. Era's house. And I told them that Kika was Pablo's assistant. He will be here at home, and they will be able to arrest him and make everyone very happy. And they will sit down and make a very important plan to arrest Kika. But in the middle of everything, Connie called Mir V and told him about the disaster. He said that she was at the airport and that she and her daughter would travel to America so that they would be safe. Connie hung up with Murphy at that time. Murphy is forced to leave a guard. And everyone goes to the airport like a madman to urge his wife. But when he arrives at the airport, he knows that America's plane went into a bloody house, and he was very disappointed after what happened. Murphy entered for the bathroom, as he describes it. Murphy sees two people in the bathroom smelling cocaine. So he has known for years. Murphy says that these two people are among the people who use Pablo to transport drugs to America. So she gives, and because of his wife's issue, he is crazy act, and he takes out all the anger on these two and keeps hitting them both, and literally, he is completely humiliated until security comes and distances himself from them. On the other hand, we see that Lakika arrives at the brothel and there are lemons waiting outside. And after a short period of time, a guard arrives with the force of the police arrest Leka. But the problem is that Lemon sees them, so he quickly reports Leka, and he and Leka begin to escape from a guard with him at that time. They prefer a guard, and those with him run after them, but unfortunately, they cannot catch anyone who cares and runs away to Cake and Lemon. A guard will literally go crazy on the same day. At night, Pablo will sit with lawyer Duke, who I hope you remember from last season. Pablo Duque knows that he wants to communicate with Caesar, president of Colombia, and try to convince him that Pablo will return to his prison and return to an agreement together like first. Duque agreed, and they are currently with Caesar. But the one who responds to him is Eduardo, Caesar's assistant. At that moment, Duque introduces Eduardo to Pablo's show, but Eduardo does not care and asks Duque to turn on the TV and watch the president's new speech. Caesar turns on the TV, and they watch him and Pablo. They are surprised when Caesar appears in his speech and says that there is no solution that will kill this country. It is cleaned up by the arrest of the evil head, Pablo Scooper, and thus Caesar is now announcing a prize worth $1,400,000 to anyone, and he connected them to Pablo at that moment. Pablo was sad and knew that the coming days would not be easy at all. The next day, we saw that Leka was going home prostitution, and he keeps asking the girls there who reported him. But of course no one tells him anything, so the cake house is literally everything in the house. There is the girl who reported him among them, and he walks away from the place as if he did nothing at that time. We see that Martiza is standing among the people. These are all the ones who watched the house and the girls who died, and Martiza knows that Kika must have done this, so he suspects her too, so he decided to run away. On the other hand, we see that Pablo, even after Caesar's speech, did not give up and had hope that there would be negotiations with President Caesar, and thus Pablo and a journalist are kidnapped, and he sits talking to him and tells him in the meeting that he wants to make peace with Caesar and be imprisoned in any prison the rest of his term that he was supposed to be imprisoned in. And not only that, Pablo's son also says that he wants to make peace with America. By the way, during this period, the new president, George Bush, had come to rule America, but contrary to Pablo F. Bush's expectations, he was against tea. The continent of drugs is terrible and wants to eliminate them. So Bush appointed a new ambassador to Colombia. He is Mr. Arthur, who was once his commander and was placed in the American Navy. After that, on Arthur, Bush also appointed a person named Bill because he will be the intelligence chief in Colombia. And finally, Bush has appointed Ms. Mafia, who will be the head of the Narcotics Control Department office in Colombia. In other words, its president is Murphy and a guard. And currently the ambassador's work has become the secret of the meeting with all the embassy staff. But Murphy was not there. It was important that Arthur let everyone know that their first and last goal now was to arrest Pablo. Is not even arrested, but they are killed completely. And Ars knows that they will have all the necessary resources to do this. Arsal speaks with someone at the embassy named Edward, who remains the communications control official, and Arson asks Edward to expand the scope, monitor him more and more so that they can locate Pablo, and that's it. The meeting ends after that. A guard talks to his boss, Mancia, who I know now. She intends to punish Murphy because he caused a problem at the airport yesterday, and because he didn't come to work either. And he asks for a guard from Melissa forgives Murphy because he is a really good and hard-working officer. But he made a mistake because of his wife who left him and returned to America at that moment. Missia understood the matter, and I decided not to follow Murphy. Then a guard goes now to meet Murphy, and they know that Missia decided not to be punished. So Murphy is happy and goes. Now he is a guard for Benzon's operations center because from now on, their work will be from the center here, and Murphy will be sitting with Misha, who you sit and blame him for what he did, and you prepare to cause problems again. So the Murphy stops talking and leaves and walks away. After that, we see that Murphy A-Guard is appointed to the operations center here. They constantly follow up on any information they receive regarding Pablo, because by the way, it continues to reach them. A lot of information because of the award that Cez gave, but the problem is that most of this information was always misleading from Pablo's men. The way they were once they went on a mission to kill Pablo in a certain house, but when they arrived at the house, they were surprised that there was no one there and only a picture of him. They made fun of Bush, so they sold that Pablo's men worked and left the place frustrated. Away from all this laughter, we see that Raymond and Kika goes to meet Pablo. And Pablo talks to Lemon, and they know that anything must be killed. And he cannot defend anything or anything, he hides it because it will be exactly like him. And he leaves and walks and comes to Kika after that. And Lemon knows that Pablo meant Martisa, and that they need to kill her because she might be the one who missed them with lemon eggs, because Martisa has been his friend for a very long time. But in the future he won't. He doesn't know how to refuse a request for a cake. And first they go to Lemon and Kika to receive a certain bath. Pablo requested it because he feels comfortable in it, so think about it. This bathroom is very good. After that, Lemon and Cake go to Martisa's house. So they finish it off and keep going around. Martisa is at home, and Lemon can find her, but he doesn't tell Kika about her. He tells Kika that she's not at home and they might come and kill her. At another time, my eggs are for a cake, but he walks away. As for Martisa, she runs away from home completely and leaves to a place where she lives, and we will know where she went. But now we go back to Pablo, and whoever gets a call from Duke knows that President Caesar. He decided to meet him and negotiate with him as long as Duke went to the presidential headquarters in order to meet Caesar. But it explodes, and now the prosecutor sits with Doki, and they know that Doki is not with the president. He thinks that they should kill Pablo. But he thinks that it is better for them to try him and make an agreement with him, and nothing more. And thus Gustavo knows Duque said that he was ready to negotiate with Pablo. So Duke left and went to Pablo now, and they know this good news. And Pablo is not convinced it is strong that his agreement with Gustavo will reach a solution. But he decides to keep trying, and currently he is leaving Doki and walking. On the other hand, news reaches a guard and Murphy that one of Pablo's men named La Kika was seen buying a certain bathroom. This bathroom was hidden in Pablo's prison, which means that Pablo loves this bathroom, and it will definitely be installed in the house where he is hiding. This makes Kafir and Murphy very happy. And he goes now to Eduardo, the surveillance official, and asks that he play with the calls in the place he saw. There is a joke because he might take a call to any of Pablo's men and agree with Edward and see what his job is. After that, he tells them that he actually took a call in this place to one of his men, Pablo, whose name is Velasco, which means he was able to determine the location of his house. So it is permissible Agard and Murphy ask Misha to talk to Benzon so that he can get a force with them. So Misha stays with Benzon, but Zone refuses because he sees that they are wasting time on Silver at this moment. Forgetting fanaticism and calling Kasser, who in turn is now communicating with the presidential office and growing up. He goes down to send a force with Murphy, Agard, and Melis to arrest Babro. But my friend Benzon, despite all this, is very upset that they imposed his opinion on him. So he decided to ruin the mission, so what he was doing kept coming out with very, very great strength. They don't hide or anything. So Flasco immediately sees them coming to the house and immediately informs Pablo. So he gathers Pablo, his family, and his family, and his men escape from the secret tunnels that Pablo built under all his houses. So he can escape from them at any time he wants, and of course he enters. Now he and his men, Agard, Murphy, and Nisha, go down and do not find anyone in the house, so Bata becomes as usual. And the second day Tata talks to him, Pablo, and you know that the police will not leave him until they kill him, and therefore he must flee the country. But escaping is not something in Pablo's dictionary. So Pablo decides to turn it into chaos for everyone, and immediately deploys his men everywhere in his city, Medellin, and sells the war on everyone, the policemen and Pablo's men. Sir, are not Betos. I mean, sometimes they kill the policemen by shooting them. Sometimes they detonate bombs on them and so on. They literally turn the city of Slaughter into a big city for police officers after what happened and the death of all these police officers. They all can't handle any weight, he can bear it, so he decided to retire. As for Caesar, we see him in this position for all these officers, and he talks to Eduardo's assistant. And they know that he is not. He will remain silent to Pablo and not negotiate with him as he wants, without continuing to pursue him. And that is why Caesar decides to return to Colonel Carrillo, if you remember him, to Colombia again. So they chased Pablo, and indeed the call reached Carrillo, who was working at the Colombian embassy in Spain and knew that he is wanted to return to Colombia to Pablo Airport. So he does not delay and immediately returns to Colombia, and they read that Pablo. He goes to Judy's house and controls him and his men, but Judy and Berna escape and Pablo is only able to arrest a group of his men. Judy. We will talk to Pablo and let them know that whether they like it or not, they will say where everything they did is Judy's drugs or he will be killed. So they scare everyone and decide to confess to Pablo about mentioning Judy. So we see that she is currently arriving at Pacho's headquarters, if you remember him, and ask Pacho to meet his boss or business partner. And Pacho knows that he is on the right track, And in fact, after a not-so-long period, he arrives to Mr. Gilberto's place on his private plane. And before I tell you exactly what Judy did with him, I must tell you who Gilberto is. Gilberto, in short, is a man gangs of veterans started in this gang field years ago with his brother Mikel. And at first they started as bank thieves as they were, but with the money they made from the theft, started trading in marijuana. And after a while they met Pablo and decided to ally with him to trade in cocaine. The world was going with them, yogurt in the blender. And during this period he worked with Gilberto and Miguel, a young man who was very excited about the work. And he was Pacho Pachuca thought that Alberto and Miguel had appointed him as a partner with them and let him manage all the work well and what they were doing. Exactly. I would like to tell you, my friend, that Gilberto and Miguel, from the time they appointed Pacho to take over the job, continued to work on their own as Egyptians, economists and businessmen. They are literally stars of society, and no one knows that everyone. What they are doing is just a tool to cover up their real business, which is the cocaine trade. And only after we got to know Gilberto and Miguel. Let's go back to the present time and see that Judy is sitting with Gilberto, Mayal, and Pachuca. They want to unite with each other now so that they can get rid of Pablo. And Gilberto thinks and knows that Judy has a better solution. It is that she informs the police about the place where her drug dealer, Pablo and his men, will go and seize her. And thus the police will be finished on Pablo and his men without them doing anything at that moment. Judy thought about Gilberto's words and they really entered her mind. So she decided to carry out the words, "We will see how you will do this." But on the other hand, Carrillo sits with Murphy and a guard. Carrillo now told them that the city of Medellin is full of informants for Pablo, and they are children, not just that. And these children report Pablo is always moving the police so he can escape. And therefore we must hunt these children one after the other, so that no one reports Pablo is in his place after that. And they ask everyone how we will catch these children. So he sold Carrillo's understanding that the matter is easy. Carrillo is currently collecting a very large force from the police goes down and goes around the city of Medellin. And of course, as long as Carrillo goes around the city, they are the children who their employer is Pablo bears dough, and they inform each other, and so on. Carrillo prefers to go around the city until he goes to a square with pictures of Pablo drawn on it and works on. These pictures are of a literal bathroom, and of course, this news reaches Pablo. So he will go crazy and not know what to do, but away from Pablo, we will come back for Carioca and Murphy with Officer Edward, the surveillance officer, and they know Edward that while Carioca was in the city, he was able to detect signals and calls to the children whom Pablo had set up to monitor and was able to locate them. At that time, Carrillo was unnaturally happy, and now took a guard, a force from the police, goes to the city of Medellin, and Carrillo arrests all these children. And the oldest one of them is literally not yet 15, 1 year. The important thing is that Carrillo, without any introduction, is trading in all meanings of humanity and kills one of these children, after which the rest of the children know that if someone worked with Pablo again, his fate would be the same as the fate of the child who died, and Carrillo fired a bullet and gave it to the youngest child in all of these children, and the one named David. And Carrillo asks David to deliver this bullet to Pablo and let him know the bullet that will finish him off after what happened. A guard and Carrillo return to the operations center, and a guard talks to Murphy and they find out what happened in Murphy's eggs because it is not useful for them to kill children. If anything happened in general, the next day the child David goes to meet Pablo and they know everything that happened at that time. Pablo does not care about all of this. They read that he benefits from this child, David, in a way that distorts Carrillo's reputation. So what does he do? Remains easy. Pablo takes David and goes to meet Valerie Lou. You remember her, and Pablo now makes David go out in an interview with Valerie and tell everything that happened. And Pablo is very happy because, of course, when this meeting upsets Carrillo, I will expose this same monster. We see that Berna, Judy's assistant, is calling secretly. They know that he wants to meet him. So Beirut now has a guard who meets him. And here he keeps telling him to take Berna to the location of Judy's laboratories, so that a guard can arrest Pablo, or at least on his men, and Carrillo, a guard. And Murphy immediately attack the factory whose address they took from Berna, and are able to arrest many of Pablo's men. The most important of whom are two people who work directly with Pablo. Literally, these two people are now taken by Carrillo, and with Murphy is on a plane like this and flies with them. Carrillo keeps asking them all the way where Pablo is, but they don't answer. So he throws him away in the utmost madness. Carrillo is one of them from the plane and asks the second about Pablo's whereabouts. And although the second is terrified in every sense of the word, he does not accept to betray Pablo. Carrillo also throws him on the plane, and he is not at all sorry for him. Of course, Murphy is terrified and sees that this is literally crazy. but it is not. He says that one day the video of the child David will be shown everywhere in the country, and we will see that among those who watch this video is Caesar. His assistant Eduardo currently knows Caesar. Eduardo that he must hold Carrillo accountable if he really killed this child. But Eduardo convinces him to forget. This topic is pure until Carrillo finishes off Pablo, after which they will hold him accountable in their own way. So Caesar agreed. Bicanfar decided that he would not rule Carrillo, and Pablo became fanatical and knew that he would write speeches for all the newspapers in order for them to publish it and expose Carrillo. Pablo then begins writing speeches for all the newspapers in the hope that these speeches will be published and Carrillo will be exposed on an occasion. We see that Carrillo is currently going around all of Judy's labs, and of course Pablo's finger is currently finishing off his men. Pablo the one there, and of course every factory that finishes Carrillo on the one in it reduces its men, Pablo, one after the other, and his strength. And because of that we see that Pablo, he literally fell into a state of depression. And the biggest problem was that Doki called him, and they knew that all the newspapers refused to publish his letters. So Pablo's nerve house. He knows that there is no hope of getting rid of Carrillo. And the biggest problem remains that Pablo has no problem with Carrillo, but Pablo has many problems. The most important of which is the Caston Brothers group, which is run by the Fidel and Carlos brothers. Of course, I know now that you are asking who these people are. I would like to tell you that this is a far-right group founded by brothers Fidel and Carlos after their father was killed by the communists. Because of this, began to take revenge on any communist and kill him all the time. For your information, this group is very heavily armed because America only supports one moment. What is their relationship at all with Pablo? And by God, my friend, they had no relationship with Blue and were not interested in him at all until he came to. The day he visited them with the new commander and experts at the American embassy, he asked them to try to get rid of Pablo because Pablo is a communist. And the biggest evidence of this is that he previously cooperated with the M19 communist group, as we saw in last season. They knew that if they helped him eliminate Pablo, America's support for them would increase even more. And then they would find the Fidel brothers. Carlos said that this is an irreplaceable opportunity. So they take each other now and go meet Judy, Gilberto, and Miguel, and he offers them that they cooperate together and get rid of Pablo, and they know that Gilberto and everyone will think and respond to them. And we will see, of course, what everyone will decide in front of them. But, my friend Gilberto, everyone doesn't need to do anything to Pablo Anan. Pablo is already falling. All his men lose confidence in him. And the one who has lost the most confidence in Pablo is Lemon. And the biggest thing about that is that Lemon goes to meet Martiza in the farm where Lyman currently lives. Martiza now knows that he is tired of working for Pablo and feels that he will be killed at any moment. And therefore Limo asks Martiza to cooperate with him, and they sign Pablo by saying that he will talk to her one day and find out where Pablo is, since he is his equal. These countries communicate with the Americans and make them arrest him. And in return, of course, they give them a lot of money. In light of this information, at that time, it is worrying Martiza, but she decides to listen to Lemon, and indeed, after a short period of time, we see Gabi, a girl who is a friend of a guard, calling him and asking him. He comes to meet her in Beirut. A guard meets her in play. She has Martiza because she is his friend, Gabi. The important thing is that Martiza agrees with a guard that you will predict Pablo and give him important information about Pablo's whereabouts so that he can save him from him. So Pew is in a guard, he is happy, and leaves Martiza and goes to Carrie, and everyone knows what happened. So everyone is happy and reads to prepare themselves for this operation the next day. We will see if he will call Martza and find out where he and Pablo will be next. After a while, Lemon locks up with her and takes Pablo to take him to this place. On the other side, Martiza calls a guard and they get to know him. This place is open to a guard, and they decide that he and Murphy go out with Carrillo and a force from the police to arrest Paulo. But Misha is the head guard, and Murphy refuses that they go out at all because Ambassador Arcer is the one who asked her to have a guard and Murphy not go out on any mission with Carrillo because Carrillo is crazy. He kills anyone, even children, in the presence of 2 Americans with him, tarnishing America's reputation. Of course, they annoy Javier and Murphy, but they can stand at orders. So he sells Carrillo now, takes power, and goes out on his way to Pablo. But he will not be able to deliver anything, because suddenly there is a car from police cars explode because of a bomb that was planted in the place. And transport vehicles come and block the road to the police from everywhere. Pablo's men appear and keep hitting Carrillo and the one with the fire because, yes, this was an ambush planned by Pablo and Lemon. Nothing more. The important thing is that Pablo's men finish off everyone and he can leave Carrillo, and Pablo comes himself, and Carrillo knows that he gave the child David his divorce. He asked him to give it to Pablo and let him know that he would be hit with this bullet. Now he will hit him with this bullet, and they will hit Pablo with the bullet after that. They know that he will shoot him again in revenge for his cousin Gustavo, whom Carrillo killed last season, and Pablo actually prefers to hit Carrillo. There is a lot of fire, and he takes his men and walks from the place with all elegance. And unfortunately, Carrillo dies, who despite his madness and his very reckless wrong actions, he was an officer whose main goal was to bring down Pablo, but he failed in his own way. After what happened, we see that a guard gets very upset and sees that he is the reason for the death of Carrillo and those with him. But Gilberto and Judy remain, and the rest when they know that Pablo Carrillo decides to cooperate with the brothers Fidel and Carlos in order to get rid of Pablo, and we will see how he will deal with them in the future. And finally, he remains. So we see Caesar standing with Eduardo. And Eduardo Caesar now knows that Attorney General Gustavo hates him. Caesar's hysteria tonight is great. He negotiates with Pablo, and Eduardo and Caesar know that this is not the case. It can't happen. So Eduardo asks Caesar to remove all these mistakes and consider him a scapegoat so that he can continue in the presidency until he finishes at this moment. Pablo reassures Caesar of Eduardo's unlimited loyalty and keeps thanking him for removing all these mistakes. Even though they are his for a while of all this, we see Martiza sitting in the church, and suddenly Lemon Cake and Pablo enter her, and Martiza gets tired and thinks that he will kill her. But the truth is that they don't do any of these things. They give her money to start a new life, and he is talking to her now. Lemon knows that he lied to her, but he secured her and her daughter's future with all this money and sold her lemon and walked on the other side. We see Murphy going home, and he is very upset about Creo's death. But something happens that makes him a little happy because he finds his wife coming from America to see him. They are very happy that we leave now and go to a guard, and he is sitting in a bar like this. So he is with us now and asks him to come with him on an important trip in Beirut. A guard is with him, so they take Berna to a house like this. They will be in this house, Judy and the brothers Fidel and Carlos, and they will be coming to agree now. With a guard, they help each other in order to bring Pablo down. At first, a guard refuses to listen to them at all because he does not want to work with drug dealers like Judy or too crazy and extremist people like Carlos and Fidel. But despite that, a guard sits and listens to them. So they now know that they will help you in every way to reach Paulo and get rid of him because he is an enemy who left and because a guard is now convinced that they will be useful to him. Judy gives the guard Martisa's address, and you know that this is the address of the girl who laughed at him. So a guard takes this address and leaves, not knowing what to do now with him. All this in the period after that. We see that Pablo's life becomes very independent, my friend, after Carrillo's death. Work is also flourishing much more than before, and because of this, we see that Caesar goes to the police college and attends a graduation party for a new batch. After that, they meet at the police. His name is Martins, and he asks Martins to take on the task of searching for Pablo instead of Carrillo, but Martins refuses. Caesar knows that his son, who has just graduated from this batch, has joined the mission, so he will leave him like this. Then Martins knows Caesar is just talking to his son, so he decided to accept the mission in general with their lineage now, and we will come back for Pablo again. And we see that Pablo is currently independent in Car's house, who by the way remains Tata's brother, Pablo's wife. And we know that Car lives in Miami to run Pablo's business there. And now Pablo Car knows that the situation has begun to stabilize a little from before and that he will increase the work more. And that is why they brought Colombia. And very soon he will also bring a rayon from America so that the three of them can meet and see how to increase the work. My friend, if you forgot about this lion, I would like to inform you that this lion is the first one Pablo worked with him smuggling drugs to Miami. Currently, Lion is permanently settled in Miami and is giving Pablo money. Of course, we will see what Lon will do to him at the same time. But in another place, we will see that a guard goes to arrest Martisa, but she prefers to know him. Laughing at her is exactly like him. A guard believes her and benefits from her after a short period. We still see Lim going to meet Martiza in a restaurant like this, and it doesn't really matter that he knows exactly what they said. What matters is that a guard has an officer with him. A Colombian was watching the place very well. Anam agreed with Martiza that she would bring Lemon here. After a while, he would leave Martiza's Lemon and walk away. So I walk with a guard and the Crombie officer behind him until Lemon arrives at a house like this and enters this house and stays in Flasco. And Flasco gives him a bag. There are drugs in it, so he takes it to another place. After that, they go out to Yemen and Flasco together outside the house. And Flasco says something to the Lemon. Then Lemon walks, and at that time he sees Flasco's guard. So he goes because this is one of Pablo's most important men, and he knew the guard that for sure. There are many men in this place other than Vlasco, so he decides that he will bring a force to support him so that they can arrest them. And he immediately insists on being a guard at the center. The operations were to send a force, but they rejected it because Martins had not yet officially taken over, and therefore no one now allows a force like this to leave now. A guard is upset and decides to act. A guard immediately calls us, Fidel and Carlos, and asks help them, and a long time will pass. And he will arrive now with their weapons, and they will enter with a guard and the officer into the house where there is Vlasco and everyone. Without any introduction, they prefer to shoot anyone in front of them. But Vlasco keeps trying to escape from the place. But they are able to reach him and read to those with him. They take him to interrogate him. They actually take Berna now, and he keeps torturing him, but Vlasco doesn't say anything. But Berna decides to take a paper. This is from Vlasco, and I have this paper for Judy, which contains information about 3 accountants who belong to Pablo. And it also contains information about Leon, who will arrive in Colombia, meets Pablo. So Judy follows all this information to Gilbert too, so that he can act the next day and see that Leon. He arrives in Colombia and is waiting for him. Nafajanti, Pacho's assistant. So take Nafajanti now and give him to Gilberto, Patch, and Miguel. In fact, we don't know exactly what they are doing to the Ion, but after a short period of time, we see that Blackie is one of Pablo's men. He goes to Pablo, and they know that Vlasco has disappeared, and that Lon called and said that he had arrived in Colombia and that Vlasco was not waiting for him. So he got scared and went back to Miami again. Pablo gets angry and tells his men to look for Vlasco anywhere and bring him to him on the other side. And at the same time, he sees Murphy is having dinner with Connie in a restaurant like this. And we know that Connie will return to America again after that, because she no longer feels at all in front of me. The country is here, and she was just coming to visit Murphy, nothing more than that. Bassem Murphy is currently going to attend Martin's first meeting at the operations center. Martins will gather all his men, and they will now know the way they will work now. First, their method will be legal, and not they will commit any violations, just like Carrillo used to do. And most importantly, Martinez will tell them about his new strategy in searching for Pablo. How will it work? And the first time a guard hears it, he sees that this strategy will not predict Pablo at all. And therefore he decides a guard is dealing with himself. In Beirut, he now meets Berna, and they know that he will provide him with a lot of information about the hired killers in Pablo's gang and anyone else. He is also armed. But he will not know any information about the locations of Pablo's laboratories because he does not want them. They also grow up in the market. So after he gets rid of Pablo, he finds them in front of him. At that moment, Berna understands what he's saying, and he's released as a guard. And that's it, sir. From that moment on, your eyes will not see nor. From that moment on, a guard begins to convey the information to Rana, who in turn knows it to Fidel. Carlos goes down to the city, and any of Pablo's men they meet get rid of him literally without understanding. They commit a very big massacre against Pablo's men. After that, we see that Blakey goes to Pablo, and they find out there are armed men. No one knows exactly who they are, who are circling around and killing our men in the city at the same time. He calls Kika and Pablo, and they find out it is clear that the place where Vlasco was in a strong battle. And Vlasco disappeared, and Pablo went crazy and knew that a new war had broken out. This time, it's not from the police. On the other hand, we see that Gilberto is in a relationship with Miguel, Pachuca, and Fidel. Their work is very good, but they are violent. Very much so. If anyone knew that they followed us, whether Pablo or anyone else, everyone would turn against us. And that is why it is of no use for anyone to know that they followed us. But they all agree according to Gilberto's words. The next day we see that a guard and Murphy go to a place in the street where his wife was attached, Flasco, and he was attached to his neck is a large piece of paper with the words, "Okay, Pablo, you and all your loved ones have no safe place with you. Greetings from the Los Pepes group." Of course, the name Los Pepes is the fictitious name of the Fidel brothers group. Carlos and Alam mean Los Pepes is the group affected by Pablo Escobar, or the group of victims Pablo Escobar in general. One day Pablo will be in a car warehouse like this. His entire warehouse will be burned, and of course those who burned it are Los Pepes. And currently Pablo was with all his men and kept thinking about who could do this to anyone in the end. Pablo is convinced that those who did this must have been Gilberto and his gang, so he decides to take revenge on them. But when he is 100% sure that they are the ones behind all this, and Ricardo, by the way, if you remember, is with everyone now, and Pablo knows that the Los Pepes group is countries they attacked him before, and one of them was injured. The one who was injured was definitely in the hospital. Since Ricardo is basically a doctor, Pablo knows that he will reach this injured person by any means. and he will know who he is working for. So Pablo agreed, and they agreed on this, and Pablo showed him the response after that. For a while now, we see that this Los Pepes issue, my friend, is spreading everywhere because the amount of murders they are committing. And we are seeing the community Caesar now with his leaders. And what they know is that he must condemn this group, only Caesar decides to postpone this matter for a while. Maybe he can get rid of Pablo or something. On the other hand, we see that Murphy and a guard are sitting with Martins and his men. And Martins knows everyone now that he was able to determine a specific place, which could be Hierro Pit, to which Hierro responded, by the way. One of Pablo's men is also there, so Martins decides to monitor this place now until he is sure that Hierro is hesitating. At this moment, the guard knows this information and immediately goes to meet Berna, and they know the place that Hierro frequents and what happens, his mother's house, because she is sick, and we see this Hierro teaching with his mother and now Carlo. Fidel and their men come and take him to kill him, and when A-Guard, Martinez, and Murphy arrive at a place where, of course, Hierro has disappeared, and at this moment, Murphy begins to feel something wrong, and that there is someone from the device. They have a collaborator with Los Pepes, but who this Murphy is still doesn't know. After that, everyone can locate one of his men. Pablo's name is Blakey, and whoever visits his fiance's house all the time at this time knows the keeper of this information and swallows that Murphy remains. He goes to Martin and asks him to go straight to his fiancé Blakey's house and see if he is there, or not without watching the place. So he wakes up Martins, and now he takes a force, including a guard and Murphy, to arrest Blakey. When he finds out, the guard knows that something bad is going to happen. Berna immediately calls and passes by, completely distancing Carlos and Fidel from him. Berna immediately contacts them and tells them to leave the place quickly at that time. My friend Fidel, Carlos, and their men were on their way home, Blakey's fiancé, so they quickly tried to escape. But unfortunately, a police ambush stops her. And Martins' son is standing on this ambush, and when he suspects them, he takes them down and stabilizes Carlos's men with weapons. Of course, Fidel proves that they too, and Carlos can take Martin's son's weapon. And things will develop more than that, but now a guard comes. Murphy calms the situation down and lets Carlos's guard return the weapon to Martinez's son and listens to him take his men and leave. Martinez arrives to a late place and he prefers to tease his son if he takes his weapon from him, but that is not important. What is really important is that Murphy, after what happened, talks to a guard. He knows that he knows now that Carlos and Fidel are the Los Pepes group and that he is helping him in Baizem. A guard now knows that Murphy is right and that he is doing this to get rid of Pablo. Nothing more, and Murphy is not convinced by everything this talk, but he doesn't say anything and gets over the situation. By the way, it happened. All of this happened. Blakey was able to escape. It's completely normal. On the other hand, we see that Ricardo was able to reach the sucking man from Carlos and Fidel's group, and now Ricardo goes and continues to torture him. He grows up and tells him who he works with. After that, Ricardo goes to Pablo and his men, and Pablo knows that the Los Pepes group, they are actually Carlos and Fidel's group, and they are trying to kill him in cooperation with Gilberto and his gang. At this moment, Pablo is going crazy. He decides to take revenge on Gilberto, and the one with him took the most severe revenge that same day at night. It was Gilberto's daughter's wedding, and in the middle of the wedding, a bomb exploded. Pablo's men planted it, but this bomb does not kill Gilberto, Pacho, or Miguel, and they remain silent after what happened together and acknowledge that they take revenge on Pablo, his family, and all his men, no matter how many there are. After all this talk, there are a few days left. We see that Pablo's mother decides to leave the house and go to church because she wants to pray and is afraid, meaning Pablo's orders, who said that no one should go out from home. The important thing is that Pablo's mother goes to church, finishes praying, and returns home normally, which is what happened. She comes back and finds Pablo and everyone is waiting for her and fighting with her because of what she did, because someone might follow her home and come and find them. They all know what Pablo said, and everyone is right, and they are not trying to finish their words, and Bella is armed, followed by Carlos, and Fidel workers are shooting at them. Soon Pablo and his men keep shooting at them like crazy and trying to escape from the house. Of course, there are many of Pablo's men, they die, including Tata's brother Car, whom Tata goes very crazy over when he dies. And Pablo and those who remain with him quickly run away. The place is safe before they die and go home. In this house, Pablo Tata knows that she must take their children and go to any country. Secondly, they live safely there, but he is here to get his rights from the police, the Americans, Gilberto's gang, the Vidal group, and Carlos. He will get his rights from everyone who hurt him and anyone who hurt any of his men, And indeed, after all of this, for a respectable period, we know that Pablo started blowing up shops and things like that belonging to Miguel and Gilberto, so that he would take revenge among them. As for Pablo himself, we see him now with his family at home, and we know that they will all travel outside the country to be safe and secure at the same time. Ambassador Arcer and Masana are now sitting with Caesar, and they know that Pablo is a memory barrier for his family, and he is their brother, and it is of no use. They let them leave Colombia because they are under significant pressure on Pablo. And Caesar is thinking, and everyone knows that he will call the foreign minister and see what he will do now. Mission believes that if they wait for the foreign minister's response, Pablo will have traveled outside the country. So I contacted Murphy and asked him to go to the airport, dissolve Pablo's family, and try to give them as much as possible until he became a minister. The foreign ministry orders them to stay in the country and love Murphy. And he actually goes to the airport and starts bringing Pablo's family moment by moment and doesn't care. They will travel to Germany. He decides to travel on the same plane. And after a short period of time, they arrive at the German airport. And Murphy immediately goes to someone from the officers. He asks him to stop Pablo's family until he gets an order to return them to Colombia. This officer leaves and actually goes, "Now Pablo's family is stopping and needs a job in a place like this at the airport." So he prefers to stay with them all the time for the sake of watching on the other side. This information reaches Pablo, and he learns that his family stopped at the airport in Germany. He is crazy about two things, and the first thing he does is call at the German embassy in Colombia. They know that if his family does not enter Germany immediately, he will kill any German citizen on Colombian soil. And why Pablo finishes his call with the embassy. He calls the airport in Germany, and they know that he will find any plane going from Colombia to Germany. If they hadn't heard immediately, I would have told him to enter Germany. But unfortunately, all of Pablo's attempts, my friend, it didn't work. So Pablo had to call Attorney General Gustavo and ask Gustavo to protect his family and let them in Germany. But Gustavo does not even respond to him. And Gustavo now goes to Caesar and asks him to return Pablo's family to Colombia. But he protects them so that he is not like the extremist group that wants to kill them. And by the way, they have no fault other than that they are just Pablo's number. Caesar thinks and sees that this is the safest right. But in Germany, we see that the officers go to Pablo's family, and he knows that they will return to Colombia. All of this is Murphy watching, and now he returns with them on the same plane to Colombia. On the plane, Tata notices, and you also notice that he went and came with them. So she gives a kiss all the time, but she doesn't say anything specific now. After a while, the plane arrives in Colombia, and at the airport door, a Colombian police force comes and takes now. Pablo is on his way to protect him, away from Pablo. My friend, we see that Doki was riding in his car normally, and suddenly he finds the gunmen Carlos and Fidel came to shoot him. So he hid and kept shooting him, but they wouldn't leave him alone. As soon as I got out, Doki was there. Anjo takes some of it and goes to the house of his ex-wife and asks her to run away with her and their son so that they do not suffer. But Mirai Doki refuses and leaves. She walks, and at that moment Doki sees the key to his wife's car in Bess without her, knowing, and takes her car because his car was of course destroyed in a beating. The fire that happened, and Doka immediately went to his son's school and took his son, and they went to a hotel to hide in until they saw him. What will they do? On the other hand, a guard goes to meet Berna, and Berna's guard knows that he does not want to work with him again. That the crazy Carlos and Fidel, they kill civilians and do not care about any human beings. And they know that this will not happen again, and he asks from him, but now he is in Doki's place. So they can finish him off because he ran away from them with a guard and took some of it. He goes to work and now accepts the probation officer, Edward, and asks him to find out where Duke is. So Edward does his job and returns to a guard, and they find out he knew where Doki was, and he and his son ran away in a hotel like this. At that moment, a guard was thinking and saw that Doki was his son and still a child. So he decided that he will not hand over to Carlos and Fidel, that they will kill him again. But contrary to all this talk, he will make an agreement with Doki and actually go as a guard to meet him. Okay, and they know that he is coming now to make an agreement with him, which is to protect him and his son and describe them as well. America, in return, cooperates with him and hands him Pablo. He very much agrees with Doki just to save his son. A guard knows that he will leave and come back to him again. After that, he becomes my friend. We see that Berna, Carlos, Fidel, and Judy meet together, and he knows Carlos. Everyone knows that a guard is working and knows where Doki is. But he lies to them, and they know Carlos now that he is the guard. But Berna opposes him. Carlos decides to act in a different way, and asks Carlos of Berna to decide with him. A guard meets him in a certain place. so he has to see what's wrong with Berna and do that. And on the same day at night, he goes as a guard because he meets Berna, but he is surprised in front of him by Officer Bill, the head of intelligence. Without warning, he finds out a guard said that he works with Carlos and Fidel. And not only that, but he is also the one who asked them to cooperate with a guard. And he secretly knows that Carlos and Fidel knew Doki and his son's place without his help. But after that, if he doesn't make them happy when they need him, he will kill him. And a guard will be shocked by all of this and leave the place. He walks and goes to a guard now at the hotel where Doki and his son are in their Arabic bag. But they were killed in a horrific way, so a guard gets angry. He is now going to the operations center, and there he will meet the guard of the Colombian officer Ture. This, my friend, is the same officer who was with the guard. When they brought Berna for the first time, he helped them with a mission like this. If you remember, the important thing is that a guard was fighting with Ture because he was the only one who knew where Doc was. Yes, and he is definitely the one who informed Rana at that moment. Ture confirms what he said, and they know that he did the right thing to get rid of Pablo, and anyone who helps him, he gets angry as a guard, but he is not doing anything now and is walking on the other side. At the same time, we see that Pablo knows that his family was detained by the police here in Colombia. So he went crazy, and that's why he talks to Blakey and asks Blakey to detonate a huge bomb nearby to the presidential headquarters so that they can send a message to President Caesar, knowing that if he continues to help Carlos and Fidel's group against them and comes to Pablo and his family, his fate will be death. So Blakey agrees and his men go now, and Nabla shouts in a place very close to the presidential headquarters. And the second day he remains in the center shop near the presidential headquarters when the bomb that was planted there explodes and literally kills dozens, most of them children. During this period, the idea of starting school was solved, and of course the parents and children in the shopping center were buying the study requirements. The important thing is that, sir, because of what happened, the whole country turned against Pablo. He literally crossed all lines, to the point that the people of his city, who were always behind him no matter what happened, turned against him, and everyone saw that Pablo must be eliminated. Among the people who see this news and know that Pablo is finished are Gilberto, Patch, and Majal, and therefore they are deciding now. They take a new step in their battle with Pablo. So what does he do when they whistle Pacho to Miami and kiss Leon? And we know here that Gilberto he convinced Lion to keep working with him instead of working with Pablo. And Lon actually agreed, and thus Pacho has now come to Miami with his loyal assistant Navi. Ginty did not care about them in turn, and he introduced them to Pablo's accountants and smugglers, who from here on out would work for them, and so all Miami's work remained under the hands of Pacho and the rest of the gang. As for Leon, one time they bring Pacho to the hotel where he is sitting, and without warning, he attacks us in my paradise, and he finishes it so that they prefer to control the work here in Miami. And Pablo does not think at all about returning this work again, far from Pacho. We are currently going to Pablo, and we see that Pablo is in contact with Attorney General Gustavo, and Just Fu knows what he did in thinking. The latter is crazy and must surrender himself and avoid Pablo. So he agrees, but on the condition that his family leaves outside Colombia. They remain safe, and then Gustavo Pablo knows that he will see what he will do about this matter, and he will soon know what he has achieved. I would like to inform you, my friend, that Gustavo will not achieve anything. Gustavo is going now to meet President Caesar and ask him to whistle for the family. Pablo is safe anywhere. And in return, Pablo will surrender himself, but Caesar refuses completely. And Gustavo knows that he does not intend to arrest Pablo Blah. He will finish him off right away. But Pablo will not be at all reassured by all this talk. So I sold Blakey to the hotel where she is being held. Tata and Pablo's family are watching him very well and making sure that Pablo's family is always safe. But the problem is that he is arrested at the Hotel Blakey. Wow, he won't be arrested. A guard goes to him now, and Murphy investigates him with him. They know that they can sentence him to death or help them and hand over Pablo. He receives a reduced sentence or acquittal, but Blake refuses to hand over Pablo permanently. They read Murphy and a guard and now take from him any information they have received for Kika. On the other hand, we see that Judy and Berna are going. They meet a gang called the Galleon Gang, and this Galleon Gang is one of the most important gangs in the city of Medellin, and Judy currently agrees. They agreed that they would join her and the Luz Pepe's group instead of Pablo, so of course they agreed, Subagallion and Betfak, that they would also meet Judy, Berna, and the Luz Pepe's gang are in a specific place like this after a few days so they can get work together. The important thing is that one of his gang members, Galleon named Hector, goes to meet La Kika and they find out everything that happened. And Kika in turn goes Pablo has those who are with him and who, by the way, are with Pablo. They are just his men, from Kika, Lemon, Ricard, and Pablo's accountant. The important thing is that for Kika, Pablo knew, and everyone said that if Galleon was injured, she agreed with Judy and decided that they were betraying Pablo, even though they were on his side. And he also told Kika that they meet in a certain place after a few days to fix things at work. And Pablo thinks for a while and passes by Kika and Lemon that they watch this place very well and know everything about it because on the day of the Galleon gang's interview with Judy and the Los Pepes gang, Pablo intends to attack the place as with his men or the rest of them. And they finish off everyone. And on Babylon Day, he is an accountant who saves as much money as possible to buy his men, and weapons help them in all of this. So everyone agrees with his words and decides to implement them. And we see, by the way, that Lakika actually goes with Lemon. They are raising the place where Judy and those with her will meet. And now, my friend, we are sighing at all these events and going to Tata Tata. Now you want to talk to Pablo in any way because Tata and Pablo's family are locked up in a hotel like this. And there are always officers watching us and they don't know anything about Pablo. And from now on, I called the broadcaster Valerie and asked her for something like this so that she could communicate with Pablo. And Free remained in turn. She went to meet Pablo and he gave her a bag that contained a wired communication device and money so that she could give them to Tata when she went to meet her at the hotel on the basis that she is coming to meet her. And Pablo gives Valerie a lot of money to do this task. But Valerie refuses and Pablo knows that she is from the day she met him. She really loved him and never helped him because of the money. So he insulted Pablo and thanked him for that. After that, Valerie went to the hotel there as Tata, and she meets Tata on the basis that she is meeting her. But in reality, she gives her the wireless device, and Tata begins to communicate with B in a way it is very normal and without anyone knowing, and so far everything is fine. What is not fine is that one day you find police coming everywhere in front of the hotel. She goes down to see what's wrong with him, but she finds that Valley was killed in her car and thrown in front of the hotel. Of course, those who did this are almonds that have a soul. Tat collapses completely and communicates with Pablo and finds out what happened and the issue of death in Ray. This literally drives Pablo crazy. So he gathers his men for Cake, Lemon, Ricardo, and the accountant. And they know that they have to go now to get all the money in their bakeries and go. This is how Ricardo was able to gather the men and save all this money so that they could go and attack the Los Pepes group. Judy and her gang, so everyone agreed to his words, are now going to Kika. And the accountant and Ricardo are bringing the money. And he prefers Lemon, but with Pablo this time, my friend, will be a guard, Murphy, and all the policemen in the city of Medellin are trying to reach the Cake. And this is of course the case by tracking his phone. They found out his phone from Brother Blakey because he decided to deliver it to Kika, as I told you. And currently, they are trying to be a guard and Murphy. They call Kika so that they can determine his location. And in the forest, Kika answers his phone. So they can determine his location in the city, and he moves in this unit. La Kika was with Ricardo, and the accountant was in a hideout from him, bringing money from him. But the problem was that La Kika was killed all at once. Ricardo and the accountant take the money, and we know that he decided to run away and leave Pablo and hate him and everyone. But this will not happen, of course. Currently, Murphy, a guard, and the police are investigating and can arrest him. After what happened, they are investigating Murphy's secret with La Kika, who in turn decides to hand over Pablo's salvation for the sake of taking a ruling and reducing it, and letting them know that Pablo Lemon is currently going to a certain place where Ricardo's men are gathered. He takes them later and they go and attack Judy and her gang, and his gang, Los Pepes, and because La Kika confirms his words, he is now calling Blue and Lemon to make sure of them. Are they going to his men or what? And at that moment, Pablo and Lemon were actually in Arabic and on their way to Ricardo's men. But Pablo felt that La Kika's way of speaking has changed, and with the news of the years, he immediately learns that La Kika has arrested him and that he is trying to hand him over. And Pablo decides to escape immediately. He actually made Lemon change his direction and run away, but when Ricardo returned, they were actually in a hideout. And we saw that it was a guard, Murphy, and the rest of the police. They watch us when they find Pablo late and not coming. They know that Pablo won't come at all. He attacks these men, gets rid of many of them, and arrests some of them, and so on. As for Pablo, he and Lemon walk in his path, and they do not know what are you waiting for again, or what will they do in all these misfortunes after a not long period of time. They will deliver Pablo and Lemon to a farm like this. This farm meets Pablo, an old man, and Pablo sits with this person and talks to him. and we know from his words that this old man remains Pablo's father. We also know that for a very long time he was separated from Pablo's mother and lived here on his farm quietly and calmly, and he had no crime or anything. The important thing is that Pablo wanted to hide with him every day. So Pablo's father agreed even though he did not like his son's path at all. Of course, because he is his son, Pablo agreed to stay, sir. And he arrived at his father here and he disappeared from everywhere, and no one knows anything about it at all. And therefore everything in the city of Medellin is different. For example, the Los Babies Association is no longer there. It had no role in the city, but they controlled a group of Pablo and Judy's drug factories, and these factories were in it. There were a lot of drugs, so based on that, the brothers Carlos and Fidel, the leaders of Luz Babies, contacted Jobber 2 and told Alberto that their work was done and that they now have a lot of cocaine labs, and they are now asking Gilberto what to do. Gilberto, without thinking, tells them that this cocaine has become theirs. They can sell it and benefit from its money to support their group so that they can fight the communists again. We know Gilberto does this not to support Carlos and Fidel, but to start a war between them and Judy, thus ending Judy as well, and thus the city of Medellin. She also goes to Gilberto and finds out what Gilberto wanted happened in the million. Because Carlos and Fed, they are talking together now, and they see that the drug trade will be very profitable for them, and since they have many factories they will be able to manufacture. They sell, but they have to get rid of Judy completely so that she doesn't crowd their work. On the occasion of Judy, one day she was going to get her car. She is going on a trip, but Boom El Arabia explodes and my presence does not happen to her. But she knows that Carlos and Fidel must have done this because they get rid of her. So Judy Perna knows that she will hand over Carlos, Fidel, and Gilberto's gang to the guard, of course. They were the ones who asked Carlos and Fidel to finish her off in the house. Judy's words don't please Berna very much, and he sees that she has turned into something. But he does what she also says and brings a guard and makes an agreement with Judy that he will protect her and give her his horse. But she will hand over Gilberto's gang. The Los Pepes gang agrees to a guard and then leaves. The guard goes to meet Mancia. His boss Work knows all this, so good luck. Forgetting that they are interviewing Judy and taking all the information from her that will make them sign Gilberto, Carlos, and Fidel. And after that they keep giving her immunity. And then a guard knows, forgetting that he will work on a very good topic and leave and walk. And until here everything was going well. But everything. This is different when Berna goes to meet with Gilberto, Patch, and Mahal, and they know that he wants to work with them instead of Judy. Judy is a thing and he doesn't work with informants or anything. And they make Gilberto and everyone happy and make an agreement with Berna. After that, we see Berna taking Judy on the basis that they will go and meet a guard in a place like this so that she can confess to him and take immunity. But Berna, he doesn't go to a guard. He goes to a place like this with armed men. And he also stays with Carlos in a central intelligence agency plane and knows Rana. Judy said he agreed with Gilberto that he would run the business here in Medellin for Gilberto and Carlos, and Fidel would work with him, and the profits would be divided between them. As for Judy, she will not be killed and she will be a face as she wants, but not for a guard and management combating drugs, but for Bill and the intelligence. Of course, Bill and the intelligence have an agreement with Carlos and Fidel, and they do not want to lose him. Judy is shocked by all this, but she is forced to agree against her will to Berna's words. And now she gets on the plane and walks with intelligence agents American on the other side. We see that a guard was in a place like this and waiting for Judy. But Judy is not you come and go to the embassy guard, and there he finds B waiting for him. The guard knows that he was wrong when he thought of agreeing with Judy behind him. So he took Judy from him and will let Judy work with him. And they know Bill that Judy will appear on the program now and will talk about a lot of information that she knows about the world of drugs, including information about a combat officer. Drugs are repeated with her in Los Pepes. And of course Bill means here now to a guard. And they also know that because of all this, Misha is also I moved to another place and he has to go to the ambassador now because the ambassador intends to return him to America. When he hears a guard, all of this drives him crazy and he asks Bill, who are you protecting? Are you protecting Carlos and Fidel to fight the communists? Or are you also protecting Gilberto and his gang? And Bill knows that he is not protecting Gilberto and his injury. But he doesn't want them to fall right now because he needs them so much and he's leaving his mind. A guard is very cold and walks. But a guard is very confused and does not know what to do or what will happen to him again after that. The problem remains. A guard goes to Tata. We see that Tata, my friend, is always trying to communicate with Pablo. but she doesn't know how to communicate with him at all. Because, by the way, Abu Pablo's farm has no network. Once, an officer protecting Tata and Pablo's family saw Tata trying to communicate with Pablo, also knows the frequency with which you communicate with Pablo. So he takes this information and goes to meet Murphy, and finds out that Murphy is happy. He collects the officer's clients twice, and they agree that they monitored these frequencies very well until Pablo was able to communicate with Tata and help her determine in his place. And they finish him off by mentioning Pablo. We still see that Pablo lives a completely calm life. He was with his father, Lemon, on the farm. But the thing that always worried Pablo was that he couldn't communicate with his wife at all. And one time Pablo became with his father and father. I know that he is borrowing from him, that he is a murderer and a criminal. And this talk makes Pablo very upset, so Pablo decides to leave the farm completely. So Pablo brings Lemon, and they know that there is a certain tree on the farm under which a lot of money is buried, and he asks Lemon to bring it. This money is necessary for them to leave from here. And Lemon agrees and goes to the tree and barks and brings the money. But the problem is that the money is spent because the water has reached you. Your house is Lemon, and he decides to spend any money for himself, so that if he wants to leave Pablo, he knows how to leave him, so that Lemon can get money. He kept taking some of it and going to my wife if she was killed, and he asked Martiza about the money she took from them. And Martiza knew that the money had been spent, but Lemon doesn't believe her and keeps looking for money until he finds her. Lemon gets angry, and in a moment of nervousness, he kills Martiza and leaves a body next to her daughter. The little girl runs away, then Moon returns to Pablo, and Pablo learns that the money has completely rotted, and there was no healthy money at all in the bag. It's about $6,000. And I don't believe Pablo Lemon. I think Lemon does it. But he didn't do anything, and without wasting time, he leaves. Lemon and Pablo are from the farm and go to the city of Medellin, Pablo's hometown. And when Pablo arrives in the city, he is happy that there is a signal in Wassel's house with Tata keeps checking on her. Then Pablo goes to his old house and is completely extremist about the city. He stays there and is always in touch with his wife. But he sees that there are communications control officers, including Officer Junior, Martin's son, whom you think is currently white, picking up Pablo called his wife, and they know that he is in Medellin, and very soon they will be able to reach him. On the other hand, Murphy goes with a guard to the airport and bids him farewell, because unfortunately, a guard will return to America, as I told you. He actually bids farewell to Murphy's guard and then walks away. Murphy is with Martin's, Officer Junior, and the rest of the officers now know that Pablo is in the vicinity of the city of Medellin, and they decide that they are supplying more and more surveillance so that they quickly determine his exact location and arrest him. After that, Martinez goes to a meeting with President Caesar and by officials, and Martinez knows everyone about what happened. So Martinez's hero will kill Pablo and not arrest him at all. But Martinez refuses. Caesar knows that if Pablo surrenders, he will be arrested, but if he resists, he will be killed. On the other hand, we see that the officer in front of Tata Pablo's family knows that Tata and the family will lift their protection very soon, and thus they will be alone, and anyone can kill them. This officer advises Tata to convince her husband to surrender, because if he surrenders, no one will think like his family. At that moment, Tata is convinced by all of this, and she keeps communicating with Pablo and asking him to surrender. So he sells it to Pablo that he will think and respond to her, and only when she finishes, she comes to communicate with Pablo. We see that Pablo's mother decides to leave the place and go to her son to be by his side. She actually bids farewell to Tata and the children and leaves. But he sees that Martins was able to pick up this call signal and throw it away. So he immediately informed Martins, who he now meets with the officers, and they find out where Pablo is, according to what Junior has determined. They immediately go with great force this place, but they don't find Pablo there because Johnny unfortunately specified the place incorrectly, and of course because he is very burned in the waves. We go back to Pablo again and see that Pablo is tired of sitting at home and wants to think with he sold Lyman that he would go for a walk and come back. And although Lyman was very opposed, Pablo insisted on his opinion. So he took Pablo now his car and he keeps driving around in it until he arrives at an ice cream shop where he used to eat in the past. The male pulls him and goes down to get ice cream and sits down. He eats it in a place like this while watching the city in which he was raised and lived, as if he was saying goodbye to the uncle. No one recognizes Pablo at all from the people around him because his beard has grown and his appearance has changed a lot and he has become equal. The important thing is that Pablo and he imagines Gustavo, his cousin, sitting next to him, and he keeps telling Gustavo that he misses him very much in his life and that everything went wrong after his death. He explains, my friend, the matter of Pablo Gustavo's love. But he lost it. When Pablo finishes his habit with himself, he returns home again, and they stay with T. So he thinks about what he will do and whether he will surrender or not. At that time, Junior can catch this call and delete what Pablo was in. Seriously, this time, as a result, he goes to the place and finds Pablo in front of him. Of course, he is shocked and immediately contacts Martinez and informs him of Pablo's location without paying. Martin sends a force from the police, headed by Murphy, and they immediately go to the house where Pablo and Big Hamu are. And at that moment, he is transformed. Pablo is like a madman. He brings pistols and keeps hitting anyone in front of him. And Lemon keeps helping him, but Lemon takes 2 shots and dies. But still, Pablo keeps hitting all the officers, and he is completely crazy until a sniper is able to hit him, and Pablo falls covered in blood in a scene that shocks everyone. In the last moments of his life, Pablo sees that all the officers are surrounded, and he is in a reality that has no power or strength around him. He is sure at this moment that everything he did in his life was unnecessary. Since in the end this is the end of it, and now the officer is coming, show him if you remember him and hit Pablo with a bullet in the brain that will get rid of him completely. And Pablo finally dies after he comes to the police and the whole world. We see that the officers are unusually happy to the point that they are now sitting and taking pictures with Pablo's body after he died. And he is the happiest person. With all of this, it is Murphy who, after years of fatigue, was literally able to reach this moment, but Caesar remained as soon as Pablo dies. This news spreads everywhere in the country, and Pablo's mother is riding a bus like this and going to him. But she knows the news and she believes it. She immediately goes to the place where Pablo died and sees her son's body. She is very sad. As for Tata, after she finds out what happened, of course, her husband gets very upset, but she still decides to take action all the time and go to Gilberto. And you know that Pablo has a lot of property in his city, Medellin, and he sold it to him, meaning he takes everything that Pablo owns in return. Yemen and her children have a life outside the country. They will not be able to live in the country here after everything that happened at that moment. He agrees Gilberto for what she said and what happened. And finally we see that Gilberto is a society with its men. Bacho, Mahal, Berna. Fidel and Carlos know that from today on Colombia has become theirs, and after they have now finished with their most important competitor, which is Pablo can sell cocaine all over America without anyone dividing the profit with them, as Pablo used to do, and Gilberto would finish his words. He sits and celebrates with his men in Saudi. Don't think that the world will laugh like this at Gilbert, and that's it. Evidence of this is that we are now going to a guard in America, and we see that a guard meets police leaders who now know that they want him to return to Colombia again and take over the case of Gilberto and his gang. And he must sign them because Gilberto, he is very crazy. Maybe more than Pablo himself, and he brings more drugs into America than Pablo. So he has to stop him, and a guard agrees. He is very happy that for a very long time he wanted to sign Gilberto and those with him, and only with him. This point ends this season because the series is not over yet, and we will see in the next season what things are still hidden. Until this happens, I can't tell you anything but that. Bye.